One of the most confusing subjects for private pilot students and instrument pilot students alike is VOR navigation. And that's exactly why I've set up this scenario for us today so we could talk about VOR navigation for free from the comfort of our own homes on desktop flight simulators. And I can hear the critics already. Why are we focusing on VORs? It's a dwindling form of navigation. It's going away. Well, the FAA is getting rid of a ton of VORs, but they're actually upgrading the remaining ones to make them more capable. And while GPS is more accurate, most of the time more reliable, and an easier form of navigation to understand, we still have to know how to use our VORs. They are an integral part of our airspace system. On my private pilot check ride, I do loss procedures and traditional navigation using VORs. On my instrument check ride, I do VOR approaches and navigate using VORs. And lastly, on my ATP check ride and my G150 type rating ride, I had to do approaches using VORs in the simulator. But you guys know me, I want to make aviation more accessible for everybody, so we're going to practice using VORs for free from our home simulators before we go spend hundreds of dollars an hour to replicate the same lessons in real life. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Colin Boone. I'm a Gold Seal flight instructor and Gulfstream pilot based in the Phoenix area, and my mission is to make aviation more accessible for everybody. To help me achieve that mission, I upload free training videos on YouTube every single Sunday and daily short-form content across my social media platforms. So if this video helps you today, please follow my socials and subscribe to the channel. If you guys like learning from me and you want to learn even more from me, you can check out my Patreon page, Flight Sim University. It's an online training platform that I've created to teach you all the fundamentals and skills that a real-life private pilot student would have to learn, but from the comfort of your own home on a desktop flight simulator. We have almost 200 members and 120 videos that take you from your first lesson all the way up to your first solo, with more videos coming soon. If that sounds like something you're interested in, it's only $14.99 a month right now. You could use the link at the top of the description to sign up. And if you're a little bit skeptical and you want to get some teaching out of it first, you can go to the basics chapter and get the first 10 videos for free to see if you like the teaching style and see if you gel well with me. If you sign up before the price increases, you are locked in at that price forever. So if it sounds like something you're interested in, link in the top of the description. Let's get into some VOR navigation. Thanks, guys. As you can see right now, whether looking at the iPad or at my lovely MFD here, we are navigating between the Buckeye VOR and the Phoenix VOR. And today we are going to be going back and forth on this Victor Airway to learn how to navigate to a VOR, from a VOR, how to identify them, and how to use them overall. To start us off here, I'm actually going to pull us off of the airway a little bit. And before we talk about specifics and use crazy phraseology or anything, we should actually define what a Victor Airway is. So I'm going to take the iPad and put it out into the middle of the screen, and we're going to talk about what a Victor Airway is for just a moment. Now, whether you're a VFR student pilot or an IFR student pilot, you can look at Victor Airways using VFR or IFR charts. So they're applicable to everybody, but they are easier to see on an IFR chart. That's typically why I demonstrate this using an IFR chart, even if it's to a VFR pilot. But just to show you, we're on Victor 16 today, or we are going to be back there in a couple of minutes. But this airway connects Phoenix and Buckeye. So a Victor Airway is just a way to connect multiple VORs in the sky. It's like a highway in the sky. You've probably heard that before. But if I'm looking at our airway in question today, Victor 16, you could see it very clearly here on the IFR load chart in black. But if I go to the VFR chart, it's a little harder to see. It still goes off of the same VOR, but it's a very light, faint blue, so it's a lot harder to see, but it's still the same exact thing on both charts. And the reason why you've heard the term highway in the sky before is because this airway doesn't just go from Phoenix to Buckeye. It goes all the way out to Southern California. Over 300 miles of airspace is being covered. So it's more like an interstate if you think about it. So after Buckeye here, on my trusty 4 flight, you could probably do this on any other flight planning app. You can even do it in your Garmin GPS. I can type in the airway Victor 16, and then I can type in the fix that I want it to end at, which was going to be the LAX VOR. And you can see there are a ton of waypoints or fixes along this Victor Airway, and it's spanning 326 miles, as you can see in the top left corner right there. But this airway extends that entire way. And to navigate on this airway, all I have to do is to navigate VOR to VOR to VOR to VOR. And if I load Victor 16 going eastbound, it extends for another 1,300 miles east of Phoenix, going all the way down to Tucson and all the way east over to wherever this is. Holy moly, all the way by Memphis. And it seems simple enough. You dial up one in VOR, you fly to it, you dial up the next one, you fly to that one, and you can do that all the way across the continental United States. But then people are going to complain, they're going to ask you, why are we even learning this? We have GPS. We could just plug in the whole airway to GPS and never have to worry about changing a VOR again. And I kind of hate to admit it, making this video about VORs, because those people are kind of right. The GPS is more accurate, it's more readily available, it's easier to use, it's less complicated. However, VORs are still an integral part of our airspace system, and if you lose GPS capability, like I've been spoofed a couple of times, then you need to know how to fall back on VORs and still use them to navigate effectively. So brief review, a Victor Airway, a VOR airway, connects VOR to VOR to VOR, and it can take you all the way across the continental United States. To be established or actually on a Victor Airway, you have to be at least 1200 AGL to be in controlled airspace, and you have to be within 4 miles of the center line of the airway on either side. So you have 8 miles of range on either side of that airway to be considered on that airway. But back to our little block of airspace that we're working with today. We're flying from the Buckeye VOR to the Phoenix VOR, and we'll be going back and forth between the two of them. Now, this is harder to identify in the VFR chart, so you can use the IFR chart, which I might switch to in a moment here, but you can get all the essential information on your VFR chart. To start, I've got the Buckeye VOR. I've got it plugged into the GPS just as a backup and as a visual aid to us today. But the Buckeye VOR, I've got all the information right here that I need for it, but it's also bigger and written out here for me to identify as well. So the Buckeye VOR is a frequency of 110.6, so I can plug that into my nav radio. I'm going to plug that into nav 2. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll on down using my big knob and my little knob, 110.6. I'm going to throw it into the active right there. And if I want to go to Phoenix on Victor 16, I just zoom in a little bit, find the light blue line, which represents the Victor Airway, and I can see that I depart Buckeye on a course of 077, or the radial of 077. And I can take that all the way to Phoenix. And you can see I've also got it here on the IFR chart, but a lot easier to see. So I think we'll stick with this for now. And before we start navigating using a VOR, we always want to identify that we have the correct VOR. Now, if you are flying a jet or a turboprop with some nice avionics, or even a Cessna 172 like this, you can see that the VOR is electronically identified. There's BXK. You can look at the iPad. It is BXK. So I know that it's already been identified. I don't have to do it audibly, but if you're flying older equipment, maybe for some reason the auto-identify feature fails, you just go down to nav 2, you press on that on the audio panel, and you listen for the Morse code. I heard the end of it right there. Let's wait for it one more time. That might be a little quieter for you guys on your end, but it perfectly played the Morse code of this VOR right there, spelling out BXK, and there it goes again. So if I don't have the electronic identification, I can listen to the Morse code, verify it with my chart, VFR chart or IFR chart, and now I know that the VOR is active and I can use it and it's accurate. And to stop that beeping in my ear, I just turn off nav 2 right there. And now we're going to role play and say that ATC told us to turn direct to the Buckeye VOR and take Victor 16 towards Phoenix. So how are we going to accomplish that? Now, the traditional answer that I get from somebody is they're just going to go on their GPS and press direct to Buckeye. I've just done it there on the iPad, and I can also go and do it here on my G1000, go direct, enter, enter, and then I can press nav mode, and the airplane will turn direct to Buckeye, as you can see over here. It's nicely drawn. But if I want to accomplish this just using VOR navigation, I can go down here to CDI, look until I get to nav 2. You can see that I've got it active up here, 110.6, and here's the radial that I have selected, my course of 101. Now I'm just going to align this until it's nice and centered, and you can see the station is that way. That's what my big arrow is telling me, and this right here is a 2 flag. I could reverse this the opposite direction and get this centered as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to go towards the station, so I'm going to look for a 2 flag. And now that I can see that I have to make a turn of about, 170 degrees to my left to accomplish this, I'm just going to throw it over here, click and drag, and the airplane's going to start turning. I am in heading mode currently. And once I'm turned within 90 degrees of that course, I can go ahead and press nav mode. And since I'm using VOR navigation right now, nav mode won't slave to GPS. No, it will slave to VOR mode. And I can continuously change my course to align that needle and take me direct to the station given my current position. You can see that happening on the iPad. You can see that happening in the airplane. And now as I'm inbound, let's see if the airplane will capture the VOR mode here. There you go. I hit nav. It goes green onto VOR. That's a very aggressive correction. I don't think the real airplane would behave like that, but that's what it's doing with us today. We'll just monitor it for now. And now we are flying direct to the Buckeye VOR. Now that we are direct to the Buckeye VOR, I want to pause the sim for a moment. It is paused completely. We are not moving anywhere. And I want to talk about a couple of things to increase our situational awareness when we are operating using VORs. And the first thing I want to talk about is going down here on my G1000 suite, going to PFD options, bearing 2, since I'm using nav 2, and I can overlay the current bearing and distance information to the VOR using this function right here. You can see I'm 10.4 miles from it, and my current bearing is 101. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And the second thing I want to do is talk about orientation. How do we get here? Why did I choose the course of 101? Well, you're going to work with me a little bit, because as I zoom in here, the chart kind of changes a little bit, and it gets cut off. So I'm just going to kind of finish this circle here on the left-hand side. And it's not going to be a perfect circle. I do apologize, but that's what we're working with here. There are 360 degrees in a circle. There's 360 degrees around a VOR, and every degree creates its own radial. So we have a radial here, 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 all the way around, like the frickin' sun that you drew on a drawing when you were 5 years old in kindergarten, just like that. Another common way of putting it is like the spokes on a bike wheel. And since in a circle there are 360 degrees, which means there's 360 radials or 360 spokes, whatever you want to call them, but radial is the proper term. Naturally, one of them is eventually going to meet me dead on. And when I was adjusting that course knob like this, I was saying, hey, VOR receiver, let's track this specific radial. Now it's 087. Now it's 093. Now it's 099. Now it's 107. You can see it all changing right there. So I'm choosing which one of those 360 degrees that I want to track going off of the VOR. Keep in mind that the course I have selected right now is 101. And this is where students really get confused, because if I draw some lines, again, I'm not an artist, just bear with me here. That is terrible. I'll do one more time. Still terrible. If I just draw a line from east to west and north to south through this VOR, you can clearly see that I am not on 101 degrees, because 101 degrees is southeast. It's like it's somewhere facing this way. But the reciprocal does face me just like that. And this is actually the question that I got asked on my private pilot check ride. The examiner had me dial up a VOR, and he said, what radial of that VOR are you currently on? So even though that 101 is plugged in there, it is actually impossible for me to be on a radial of 101, because I am on the opposite side of the VOR. 101 is a southeasterly heading, and I am to the northwest. So I'm actually on the reciprocal, which is 281. And I can see that right here by looking on the tail end of my needle. And this is 280. It's 1 degree to the left of that. Or I can just do the math, and then I can, add the 180 degrees to find the reciprocal. Now, I know that it sounds confusing. This used to confuse me too, but no longer. Now, to figure out what radial you are currently on, all you're really doing with your instrumentation in the airplane is going to the center of the VOR, drawing a circle, and then just drawing a line straight out to wherever your airplane is, just like that. You can see I'm to the northwest here, and because I'm to the northwest, 281 makes sense. And if I go here and I go back to my course knob and I rotate this 180 degrees, it's going to take me a moment. I am sorry. And I get to it saying 281. Here comes the needle. And all I've done is I've told it, hey, I am going to use 281 now. The arrow is going from the VOR, which is somewhere over here, out towards me. And that right there is my from flag, this little thing. So it's saying I am on a course of 281 away from the station, and the radial that I have drawn is going out this way towards the bottom of the screen, towards the outer ring of the compass rose that I have here on my HSI. And to help you visualize it a little bit, you can kind of think of the tail end of this huge arrow going this way as the center of the VOR, and the tip of the arrow being the way that the radial is pointed, this course of 281. And you can see that all the way around the horn as we rotate and rotate and rotate. That might still be confusing to you. That's okay. This takes people a long time to understand, but that's why you have to get some experience with it and fly in your sim. It's better to do it here for free than it is to do it for hundreds of dollars per hour in a real airplane. But let's simplify it even more. If you want to fly directly to a VOR, you want to fly with a course, in our case it's 101 here, that is going to take you directly to the VOR, and if you stay on that course, once you cross over the VOR, you will go through the VOR. So that's the saying, to go through. And when we flip over to the other side, I'll show you what to do when we're going away from the VOR. So let's go direct to Buckeye now. Now we're 7 miles from Buckeye, and remember, we're going to capture Victor 16. And departing Buckeye, once I fly over the top of it, I'm going to twist my course knob to 077. And then I'm going to turn the airplane using heading mode. And once I get back on the center line of this VOR, I'm going to hit nav, and we're going to fly away from Buckeye using a course of 077, and we will be on the 077 radial. Now, it's important here as we get a little bit closer that we align our heading bug with our current course, because very soon we are going to have a very sensitive VOR needle as we get close to the VOR, and we're going to enter the zone of confusion. And without any input from us, the needle will swing out, and then we will see a flip of the flag from to to from. So expect to see this little guy here go from pointing this way to pointing behind us. And when that flag flips from to from, we're going to rotate our course knob over to 077 degrees. That'll be the new radial. We'll go capture that, and then we will establish ourselves on Victor 16. So here we are about a mile away from Buckeye. We're right over the top of it here. And you can see that needle's going a little bit crazy. I'm going to go to heading mode real quick. We are in the zone of confusion. We have no needle. We have no sensing capability whatsoever. We're going to wait for our flag to pop on up. Maintaining our heading. There it is. We have a to to from swap, and we're going to go 077 right here. And we will fling our heading over here. Go fly the airplane to get this needle to the center. And it's only going to be a very gradual cut because I don't need to do anything rash. You can see it on the MFD over here, just how close I am to the center line of this airway already. I'm very close to that VOR, so everything is going to be very, very sensitive. And as the needle starts swinging in, I can start taking out that correction. Nice and gentle does it. And to avoid the airplane acting all rash and making an overcorrection, I'm going to wait until it's pretty much in the center, and then I'll hit nav mode again, and you'll see it pick up the VOR outbound. Okay, there's nav mode, VOR again, and it's done an overcorrection again, but it's all right. We'll just monitor the situation. But there we go. We are now on Victor 16 off of Buckeye 077 outbound away from the VOR. And you can also see I have that nav 2 bearing right there, so that distance isn't ever going to say 0 unless you are colliding with the VOR. And briefly, we're going to use our replay mode to review exactly what just happened. You can see this replay starts with us about 2 miles from the Buckeye VOR, and that distance includes our height above the VOR. The Buckeye area is around, let's see, 1,000 feet above sea level. So it's never going to get below about a mile here on that distance, because we're about a mile to 1.1 to 1.2 miles, something like that, above the VOR. That is included in that distance right there. If you're using GPS, it will say 0, but if you're using radio navigation like we are down here, it probably won't be less than a mile, and I bet that we'll see that in just a moment if we're looking down there. But we're on a course to the station of 101. We'll zoom in nice and tight there on the iPad so we can view that. Make sure that looks correct. Yes, it does. And we're going to the station. We have our 2 flags showing us that the course is taking us towards the station currently. And then we have our giant arrow, which represents our course of 101. And that aligns up with the outer ring of the compass rose here on our HSI. We'll continue the replay as we get closer and closer to the center of this VOR, being right on the top of it. The radial, or the needle, is going to start to swing outwards because we're going to lose reception of that VOR when we go right over the top. And you can see that on the iPad as well. There it goes. The distance still at 1.1 miles, even though we're directly on top of this thing. And we just lost reception. We'll pause the replay for a moment. We have no information whatsoever. And there you can see 110.6. That's our Buckeye frequency that we identified earlier. No reception whatsoever. It's not being identified anymore. So now we're just flying the heading. That's all we're doing. Flying the heading. We're going to wait to get our reception back until we get spit out the other side, and we're able to get some information from the VOR again. And you're going to see when we get spit out the other side, there it is right there. We have a from flag. How about that? So now we are going away from the VOR, and now we're on a course of 101. We're still on 101. We're not going to the station anymore. We're going away from it. We have a southeastern course of 101 plugged in, and now we are actually flying southeast of the VOR. So the course arrow stays the same, going towards 101 because it is 101. And this flag, the from flag, it swapped over. It swapped from to to from because now we're going away from the station. So at this point, the replay doesn't replicate me swapping over the course knob here. But at this point in time, we had the arrow or the flag swapped. So I swapped this to 077. And then we made the heading change to somewhere over here. And then we went to go get this needle into the center. Now it's important that we are flying with a to flag towards a station and a from flag away from a station like we are doing now here, because that will give us proper sensing of the needles, where we always want to chase the needles. And we could talk about that a little bit more later, and I talk about that in my course as well. As we get closer, or get that needle closer towards the center, then we can ease out on the heading that we have, that cut towards the center, ease out on that, and then we can go back to VOR mode and capture that nice and easy. Now the sim is paused as I get Phoenix ready. If I zoom in on the Phoenix compass rose and I find the course for Victor 16, it says 260, and I can plug that into my nav or my VOR receiver here, 260, and you can see the course is 260, which makes sense. It's pointing towards 260 on the compass rose or the heading indicator there on the HSI, and then we have a from flag. But remember what we said earlier, we want to go through. I can navigate like this, but this presents a problem in the form of reverse sensing, where if we have a to flag, we will be able to chase the needle at all times. But if I have a from flag while I'm going towards the station, it's going to want me to go away from the needle to get it back to the center. Now that can be very, very confusing. So to avoid that altogether, remember to go through. We're just going to reverse this in the opposite direction of 260. A nice easy memory trick for that is I can just subtract 200 degrees and I can add 20 back. So minus 200 off of 260 is going to be 60 degrees. Add 20 back, it's going to be 80. So we got 080. Now we have a to flag and we have our course directly towards Phoenix. I can go back to nav 2 at this point since I'm navigating using the Buckeye VOR. I'll unpause and I'll throw myself back on to nav mode, and we are sitting pretty good. If you're navigating using your IFR load chart, you'll see that there are other fixes like Alice and Perky and Avona between the two VORs on your airway in question. However, if you use the VFR chart, you'll notice that there's really none except for one when it's necessary. In this case, it's Perky. And if you didn't notice before, 077 off of Buckeye and 260 off of Phoenix are not direct reciprocals of one another. There is a slight heading change. It's only 3 degrees, but I cannot go direct to Phoenix using 077 because it won't take me direct to Phoenix. I'll be 3 degrees off by the time I get to Phoenix. So Perky is actually going to be my changeover point when I want to swap between the Buckeye VOR and the Phoenix VOR for the VOR that I am using to navigate at that time. But we already have Phoenix set up, so when we get to Perky, all I have to do is swap to nav 1, and then we're good to go. Now we have fast forwarded a little bit. You can see we're crossing over Perky there on the iPad. You could also see it here pretty darn close on the simulator as well. It is now time to swap nav sources. Now I'm going to slave my heading bug, hit heading mode. I'm going to change my nav source here to nav 1. And it looks all centered. Everything looks good. I have PXR identified electronically, so I don't have to do it audibly like we did earlier. Hit nav mode again. We're back into VORs, and there we go. Now we're flying direct to the Phoenix VOR from Perky. That's it. Simple as that. And that might be a little confusing, where you're like, well, I thought that Victor Airways connected 2 VORs and that they would go direct to one another. And it's true, they do connect 2 VORs. However, sometimes there are very large gaps. And if we look further down on Victor 16 from the Phoenix VOR, you can see Victor 16 going down this way right through here. Excuse me on that. Down to this little intersection here of Totec. If we go off down to the Tucson VOR, you can see there is a massive heading change in the middle. And if we look here again on the VFR chart, there's that little switching direction sign right there. That means that I have to swap the VOR source that I'm using for my navigation at that point in time. So yes, Victor Airways do connect two VORs. That does not mean that the course from one to the other has to be direct. There can be a change in direction in the middle of that airway, and that is when you would swap from one VOR to the other while navigating on that airway. Now, if you feel like you're a little bit behind, you don't fully understand everything yet, that's completely normal. This is a very difficult subject for most private pilot students and for instrument pilot students as well. So don't feel bad if you're a little bit behind. We've learned a lot of stuff already though, so you should feel good about that. So far, we've been able to do a lot of things in a very short amount of time. We've been able to use our sectional chart or our low IFR charts to find a VOR on the map, look at the frequency, plug it in using our nav radio, then find the audible way to identify the VOR, find the way to electronically identify the VOR. And once that's plugged in, we've learned how to use our OBS knob to plug in the appropriate radial to track to or from a station. We've been able to go direct to a station. We've been able to learn about Victor Airways, how to get on a Victor Airway, where they start vertically, where the bounds of them are laterally. So there's a lot of stuff that we have learned so far. However, we have not yet covered reverse sensing or how to do this in a traditional 6-pack. Now, I was recording all the reverse sensing stuff in the G1000 cockpit, and I don't know if it's realistic or not, but the G1000 is way too smart in the simulator, and it recognizes that there is a reverse sensing concept at play, and it completely removes that as a factor. I don't remember that being present in the real airplane when I trained on G1000 years and years ago. So I'm going to re-record all of that stuff and show it properly in a proper 6-pack like this 172 that we have right here. You could also do it in any other 6-pack in the flight sim. So to avoid this video being over 45 minutes long, I'm going to end this video here, record all of the stuff in 6-pack, all the reverse sensing stuff, and show you how to interpolate all of that information. And then we're going to upload that second half of the video as part 2 about halfway throughout the week, and then we'll have a brand new subject ready for the following Sunday as well. So I'm sorry to cut this one short. I certainly didn't expect it to go this way when I was recording this video, but I don't want to swap cockpits in the middle of a video while there's already a confusing subject at hand. So expect the video to come out in a couple of days, and we will pick up exactly where we left off with a small recap at the start, just to make sure that everybody's up to speed, and then we will have another video on Sunday. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to learn more from me, check out the links in the description for my socials and for Flight Sim University, where you can learn to fly and do all the fundamentals that a real-life private pilot student would have to do from the comfort of your own home on a desktop flight simulator. Thanks again, everybody, so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.